I call upon the spirit of the owl, messenger of wisdom. Welcome to the Temple of the Owl. Merry meet, seekers of knowledge. I am your host, Matt Owl, and I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Sending out some good positive vibes your way if you need them out there. Here at the Temple of the Owl, located deep in the forests of Northern California. In this episode, we will discuss Silver RavenWolf, one of my first teachers that taught me about the craft. This is where we talk about magic and spirituality on all levels, but it's through the perspective of a modern witch. As always, these are just ideas to help you live a magical life and make you think about things differently. Take the information and do what you want with it. Feel free to change or anything if you need to. Well, thank you guys for listening on YouTube and the Spotify, templeoftheowl.com. Go check it out. Also, thank you for listening on Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting. Check out troubledminds.org. Thank everyone out there, the Troubled Minds family, for listening and supporting me. Thank you guys. And I'd like to start the episode with what I call the MOD, or the message of the day. It's a quote that I found off the internet. It helps me explain today's show topic. And we're talking about one of my favorite authors, Silver RavenWolf. And I found this quote. It says, "Magic lives inside you, and it always has." I like that. It's from Silver RavenWolf. And I like that quote. You know, it really kind of sums up what we're talking about here about, you know, magic is in everyday life. Now, there are certain authors that they don't just write about witchcraft, they shape it. For many modern witches, especially those who begun their path in the 90s, which I did, and one name that stands out, Silver RavenWolf. You can love her, some people critique her, but her influence on contemporary Wicca and accessible witchcraft is undeniable. Because to understand modern witchcraft, we have to understand the voices that brought it into the mainstream. Now, Silver RavenWolf was born in 1956 in Pennsylvania. She entered the world of Wicca in the 1970s, a time when witchcraft was still largely underground and often misunderstood. She trained in a Wiccan tradition and later became a high priestess with the Black Forest Clan, a coven based in the tradition she founded. But what truly set her apart wasn't just her practice, it was her voice. In the early 1990s, publishers began recognizing that there was a growing interest in witchcraft among teenagers and solitary practitioners. There wasn't many accessible books for beginners. Silver stepped into that gap. In the 1990s and the early 2000s, she became one of the most visible Wiccan authors in America. Her books spoke directly to teens who used approachable language and framed witchcraft as empowering and emphasized personal responsibility. She made ritual feel accessible. Now, for many young witches, she was their first teacher. She helped normalize solitary practice, teen witchcraft, and feminine spiritual power, and everyday magic. At the same time, some traditional covens criticized her for simplifying complex traditions. But regardless of the debate, she helped bring witchcraft out of the shadows and into the bookstores across the country. Now, Silver RavenWolf was born Janine Taylor Trayer on September 11th, 1956. She was raised in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. She grew up in a Christian household where her father practiced Lutheranism and her mother attended a local church, part of the Disciples of Christ movement with Baptist roots. This environment was described by Silver RavenWolf as a very Christian upbringing, with a strong emphasis on Christian teachings and practices. Her early life was marked by a profound personal loss when her mother died in 1970 at the age of 42. This event deeply influenced her spiritual outlook and is often cited at the turning point of her journey toward witchcraft and neo-paganism. In the early 1980s, RavenWolf began engaging with the pagan community, achieving third-degree initiation in Wicca and becoming connected to both British traditional witchcraft and a family-lineaged witchcraft tradition. These experiences laid the foundation for her later work as a Wiccan high priestess, author, and the founder of the Black Forest Clan, which grew into a network of covens across the U.S., Canada, and internationally. Her early exposure to Wicca, combined with her Christian upbringing, shaped her eclectic approach to spirituality, blending Germanic folk magic and powwow traditions, and the eclectic witchcraft elements. This background would later inform her best-selling books, which emphasize practical magic and accessible rituals for beginners and youth. Silver RavenWolf received her third-degree initiation from the member of the Serpent Stone family, a pagan congregation, while studying under a British traditional witch who claimed to have ties to the international Red Garters in Britain. Silver also became connected with the family lineage who has the last line in the tradition. It was this mentorship that promoted the beginning of the Black Forest Circle in the 1990s. The Black Forest Circle is an organization that contains hundreds of covens spanning the United States and Canada. Up until 2010, she appeared as a lecturer and a workshop facilitator at events in the neo-pagan community. She was active in Wiccan anti-discrimination issues. She was also a powwower, having adopted to the Pennsylvania Dutch practice in a neo-pagan context. Silver RavenWolf is the author of over 17 books on Wicca and paganism in general. She's also written several novels. Her books are being translated in many different languages. And she's the director of the Wiccan Pagan Press Alliance, Midnight Drive. Now, some of my favorite books include Teen Witch in 1998. Now, this is arguably one of the most famous and controversial books about witchcraft for teenagers. It focuses the ethics on ritual basics, empowerment, and this book gave you permission to explore spell work, personal altars, and lunar magic. It opened the door for a generation of teen witches, and I can attest to that because I read that book as a teenager. Now, some felt it encouraged youth to practice without deep training, but others argue that it defined a spiritual grounding when there's none existed before. Another one of my favorite books, To Ride a Silver Broomstick in 1993. It was the introductory of Wicca. It focused on ritual structure, deity, ethics, and tools. Now, this is one of her earliest and most foundational works. It walks readers through casting a circle, sabbats, and the Wiccan reed, the elements, ritual tools. For solitary practitioners without access to a coven, this book became a guidebook. This is also one of my favorite books by her. Up next, we have To Stir a Magic Cauldron in 1995, a follow-up that expands into practical magic. It covers spellcraft, protection, psychic development, and advanced ritual technique. This book leans more into the hands-on magical work. We have To Light a Sacred Flame in 1997. This book focuses on coven practice, Topics include initiation, group ritual, priestesses and priest roles, and structure and hierarchy. It reflects her own coven-based background more strongly. Up next we have Solitary Witch in 2003. This book became extremely popular. It's essentially a large, detailed workbook for solitary practitioners. It covers astrology, chakras, ritual structure, and seasonal rites. It talks about divination and shadow work. Now, for many witches in the early 2000s, this was the complete course in one book. She had some other books she wrote. She wrote a Halloween-themed magic books and children's magical stories. She also did a lot of work on tarot resources. She wrote fictional series about witchcraft and pagan holiday guides. She blended education and storytelling, which made witchcraft feel more alive rather than academic. Well, no discussion of Silver RavenWolf is complete without mentioning the debate that some of her critiques include oversimplification of traditional Wicca and blending traditions in ways that some found inaccurate, but engaging early initiation without lineage. But other people argue that she empowered thousands, and myself included. She gave teens a spiritual alternative. She helped destigmatize witchcraft. She expanded access in many ways. She represents a shift from secretive coven culture to public spirituality, a time when witchcraft entered mainstream bookstores. Now, teen spirituality blossomed, and feminine empowerment with central solitary practice became normalized. She may not represent ancient tradition, but she absolutely represents the modern witchcraft culture. Now, from a witch's perspective, Silver RavenWolf reminds us that traditions evolves, voices change. Each generation reshapes the craft. Some guard the old ways, and some open new doors. And sometimes the most controversial voices are the ones who move the conversation forward. Whether you see her as a teacher, a trailblazer, or a debated figure, her impact is woven into the fabric of modern witchcraft. And I like talking about that. I like her, her books. Like I said, her books really helped me when I first started. And I was gonna do a book review on another one of my favorite books by her. So we'll talk about this book. One of the first books that I picked up and really dove into, and we're gonna do a whole show about this next. Protection spells. But we're going to talk about this book. This is one of her books, book review, of Silver RavenWolf, Spells for Protection. This book reflects her mission to make witchcraft accessible, practical, and empowering for everyday practitioners. This isn't a ceremonial grimoire or an ancient text. It's modern, approachable, and designed for real life. So let's explore what the book teaches, who it's for, and why it continues to influence beginner witches. This book focuses on the essential truth. Protection is the foundation of magic. Before manifestation, before spell work, before spell casting, protection comes first. The book includes spells for home and personal protection, emotional and psychic shielding, warding, and rituals for protection for family and loved ones, methods for removing negative energy, seasonal and lunar protection work, and practical everyday magical solutions. It blends Wiccan spirituality with folk magic and modern energy practices. One of the biggest strengths of this book is its practicality. Its Silver RavenWolf focuses on simple materials, everyday tools, visualization, and personal empowerment. Many spells use items like salt, herbs, candles, stones, and water. And this makes the magic feel accessible and grounded. It's not about dramatic rituals. It's about building spiritual resilience. From a modern witch's perspective, this book reflects a shift of the craft. The older traditions often kept protection a secret, but RavenWolf opened the door. She taught psychic boundaries, energetic hygiene, and emotional awareness, a responsibility in magic. And many of the teachings in this book are now common in energy work, meditation, shadow work, and spiritual wellness. Even outside the craft, these ideas are used widely today. It's very beginner friendly. The book is ideal for those that are new to witchcraft. The language is simple and encouraging. It doesn't assume previous knowledge. One of the most modern aspects of the book is that it focuses on mental and emotional safety. It teaches readers how to set boundaries, recognize toxic energy, strengthen confidence, and build self-awareness. This is what makes it relevant even for people who don't identify as witches. It talks about empowerment over fear. Rather than presenting the world as dangerous, the book focuses on strength and control. It's one of the reasons why so many readers find it life-changing. Of course, there's criticism and debate. Like a lot of her work, this book has sparked a lot of debate. Now, some traditional practitioners feel the spells are simplified and the tradition is blended. The structure lacks depth. But others argue that the accessibility is necessary and that modern witchcraft must evolve because beginners need guidance. And it reflects a larger conversation in the witchcraft world between tradition and accessibility. The book is ideal for beginner witches, solitary practitioners, and teen witches, and people exploring energy work. Those seeking emotional and spiritual empowerment. But advanced ceremonial practitioners and those seeking historical and traditional lineage. Its influence is undeniable, whether you see it as a starting point or a lifelong guide. Spells for Protection helped shape modern witchcraft culture. It taught a generation that magic is not just about power, it's about safety, awareness, and sovereignty over your own energy. And perhaps that's why the book still resonates today. Because in a world filled with uncertainty, protection is not only magical, it's essential. Alright, well, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let me know if you guys have ever read any of Silver RavenWolf's books, or if you know anything about her, or if if she taught you anything in her stories and her books. For me, she's one of my favorite authors. She taught me a lot of things about the craft. I own all those books, and I've read them, and they're really, like I said, they help to a whole generation of people kind of open up to it and be able to talk about this stuff, be able to see this stuff going on. And so I really want to thank her for her work. Her work is essential. And, well, let me know what you guys think. We got templeoftheowl.com. Check out some episodes. We're still going to be going on every Monday at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And next episode is going to be about protection. We're going to talk all about some of that, more of that stuff that book was talking about, protection magic, and kind of reread that book and go through it. And talk about some protection magic, some shielding, some warding, stuff that maybe I should have done first. This is important to have that protection, that shield of light around us before we do anything. And I just wanted to put that out there to talk about her. Thank you guys for listening to me. Thank you guys for listening to Temple of the Owl at templeoftheowl.com. Very special thank you to those listening on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. I want to thank you guys for listening. I release the spirit of the owl. Blessed be.
For many centuries, witchcraft has been considered evil, associated with the devil and all things dark. Let's break these stereotypes with your host, Matt Sow, of the Temple of the Owl. Let's talk about magic, of the old ways to explore the many roles of the witch, including the tools of the craft, the history of the science behind this ancient, earth-based religion, on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. For many centuries, witchcraft has been considered evil, associated with the devil and all things dark. Let's break these stereotypes with your host, Matt Sow,